Go.
All right, everybody. This is Tiny Town Reveal. So, Mary, we just finished our week 20, and ta-da! That is the final Tiny Town that I made. Everybody's looks going to be a little bit different. Okay, so what you're going to do to finish your Tiny Town is you have 11 rows that were in your kits. So there's 12 months in a year, so just decide what row is going to be what month was the easiest way to sort it out. And 1 month will obviously be 2 months, like July, August is how I did it. So I started at September and I ended in July, August. And you'll see at the September, I made some falling leaves to kind of set the tone of my quilt. And at the bottom, we get the flowers, and that would be summertime. So,
With the bicycle.
Yeah, with a bicycle. So what I did was I sorted my rows, and then I went through my houses and put them on according to what I thought, you know, like there's books, back to school, the little kitty with the glasses, that would be September, all the way down to the bottom, which is rodeo, watermelons, bikini cats, you name it. So you're going to start there. Once you have everything sorted out, the next thing you're going to do is lay out your houses. Now in Wendy's pattern, the measurement is 35 and a half. 35 and a half, but it was too squished. So I made mine 37 and a half, which is on this piece of paper. So if you need the paper, I've got it.
And each person got a full width, so they have plenty.
Yes, oh, they have plenty. Plenty. So draw your lines 37 and a half. And then what I did is draw a line 1/4 inch in from my 37. So you can see 2 lines there, very brief. And this, because this is, of course, is the sew line, this is your seam, and your houses are going to be at 2 5/8. That's the tip top of the roof, from the bottom. 2 5/8 is what her pattern shows. So I drew a line, because that way I knew the tip of my roof are all going to be somewhat centered.
Okay, that's the top.
Right. So when you lay out your houses, you want to start on one side. And I just looked at her picture. I didn't really go through her pattern very much. I looked at her picture, and it's like the bottom one has 7 houses on the left, a tree, and then the remaining on the right. I just counted from her picture what it was. I laid my first house right next to that seam line.
Okay, yeah.
And
the
see,
1/4
yeah,
inch in.
yeah, and then see the roofs are right there. So
Right
I would go
on that line.
I would go 7 houses, stop, and then I would do the remaining over here, and that would leave me the gap for that tree.
For that.
Which every row has some kind of a
Some
gap.
kind of motif.
But that way, your houses will be pretty close to the edge. Obviously, I didn't do a great job getting them right to the edge. Your goal is actually to get them right next to that seam. But I think they look fine.
Right,
they
they're
look
pretty darn
fine.
close.
Yeah, the one I think in the middle is the only one that came out perfect. But anyway, so that's step 1. Then you're going to take your Roxanne's glue and you're going to glue down all of your houses. Okay, if you used my method, right? There's different methods that you could use, but I turned my edges. So I glued them down, nothing fancy, just enough to keep them down. Then what you've got, and I of course put my trees, etc. Then you're going to take your strip, and I did use invisible thread, which is the poly. I use a sulky ultra fine thread, which Mary's got in the shop, or she's going to get it, I think tomorrow it's coming. It's the ultra fine. So I don't really love YLI. It's a little thicker and a little wirier.
It is. Sulky is
Sulky. It's super fine.
Sulky is nylon or polyester, one or the other.
So is this also on the bobbin?
No, regular thread on the bobbin. A good 50 weight, like Aurifil. So then what you've done, I've got it all glued down. So you could actually just take this to the machine and sew it. But I find when I'm sewing very tiny stitches, especially with clear thread, it will start to pucker. So I put a piece of parchment behind it, and it just gives it enough strength to sew through without puckering. You'll notice there's no puckers. I just got it at the dollar store or Costco. But I tried it first without it, and the first 5 stitches I realized that's not going to work. So I did have to use the parchment. It's easy to come off, so go ahead and do that. So then what I did was I went to the machine. I set my sewing machine at, it was 1 and 1.5 width, And what zigzag.
Oh, okay.
Zigzag.
Very narrow.
Very narrow.
Tight.
Yeah, so if you look, you think you see the stitches, but actually that's my after quilting on it.
Oh, okay.
You can't see my invisible, I can show you one though. Here's one because my tension was off. See how you can kind of see my tension is off there, and you can see the railroad coming through. I was just getting tired.
Barely.
So, right, but I'll give you some tips on how to fix that.
Good.
So what you do is, when you're gonna stitch, my machine does not like to back up when I'm using poly thread, and I want to finish as much as I can without stopping and cutting. So I started here, I went up, roof, all the way down to the end. Same over here. Then what I had to do, because now my houses are right next to each other, this stitch is too small to catch both houses at the same time. So I increased my stitch to 2, because that will give me 1 hit on one house, 1 hit on the next. And you can kind of see, Mary, I don't know if you can, I mean, the white is my actual quilting, but you can see the little dot, yeah. That's my stitch. Because you need to hit the house, the house, the house, the house, the house, the house.
Here, this one is also...
Can you see that one a little bit?
Zigzag.
Yeah, you can just see a tiny bit of zigzag on there. So I did have to come up, and I did have to just cut it. Since I can't back up, I did use fray check on the back of where I couldn't back stitch.
Anytime you had to end,
yeah,
you cut and fray
I did.
check.
I can't say I did it everywhere, but I tried. But anyway, so that will get you all your houses down and your little goodies.
Okay.
Okay. What else is on my list here? Yes. Okay, so let's do a really quick demo here. I don't have let me get this house on here. So if I'm going to stitch the roof, and I probably would pin this so it's not doing this, but right now I didn't have to. We're going to pretend like I haven't sewn it because I want to talk about the roof line here. Please be threaded. Yeah, it is. Okay, so if you turned your edges,
I'm going to come over to the other side.
right. So remember, I'm doing the roof line, so I'm going to go smaller, stitch the same length. So as I'm coming up here, my goal is to hit 1 stitch on, right off, on, off. I don't want to go like that because that will also create a pucker. So I'm gonna put over just a tiny bit. So we're gonna go, see how it's going 1 on, 1 off, 1 on, 1 off, 1 on, 1 off. Now, when you get to the top here, a lot of, this house doesn't have it. Let me see if one of my other houses have a better, looking for a house that's got like a dog ear at the top. Here you go. Okay. So see this dog ear? We're gonna pretend like if I was stitching that. You don't want to cut these off. People love to cut these off because they think, oh, it looks like, make me look like a beginner. Cutting them off is actually going to cause it to fray. So when you are stitching, you're stitch, 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 and when you get to here, take a stiletto, just tuck his little leg in, and keep stitching. And that will keep that from unfraying. Okay. Don't cut those off.
Got it.
Okay. So that's the stitching of that. What else do we have on here? So in below, of course, that's just a regular 50 weight Aurifil thread. You do not put clear ever in your bobbin. You will know that the second you try it. After you're done, what's nice about this parchment paper is when you're done, what I did was I pretend like all my houses were stitched just like this, all the way down. If I hold it like this, take this and go this direction, it all comes off. Yeah, all the way down to the V. So it's very simple. And then I had to come back and just rip off where the house was. Very simple. It's not like regular paper piecing. Just pulls right off. And then this, of course, would be where I would use a little bit of fray check after I pulled the paper off.
Oh, got it.
Right there, where I couldn't go back and forth. Right. So then when you're done with that, you have all your houses on. That's it. The border is 6.5 inches wide. You need 5 strips. So, Mary, I think that's less than a yard. Am I correct?
I didn't cut
I think that's less than a yard. Yeah, and you pick out your own border.
Yeah, it's close to a yard.
Yeah, it's about a yard, so
Okay.
a yard is fine. The thing I would change on my pattern, or on what I did, I would have moved my bicycle up, so he didn't have a flat tire. It would have been. It would have looked better if he was floating.
Oh,
I was more. I thought I wanted to make him grounded, but I didn't align enough to get it on
You
there.
didn't want it to be ET,
Right.
but
And
you
I
went
also,
too far.
whenever I had a raw edge, I also did not stitch it down. I literally just did a raw edge and made sure when I quilted it, I made sure I went through any piece so that it wouldn't
you
just come
quilted
off.
it down,
Yeah, there was very
basically.
little. Like if you tried to stitch
these
those
guys.
ears down, they're too small. You would ruin him if you tried to stitch it. One last tip.
Dog,
Yeah, my little dog. So one last tip here, Mary. When I got down here, I was getting tired, obviously, of sewing. And you can see my tension started to come off. See how you can see my little dots here? Yeah, that's my bobbin pulling through at the bobbin at the bottom there. So I have tips on the back of here on what to do if your tension keeps coming off. The majority of the time, if your tension is off, it's because this thread has caught something and it's tight, and that's what makes your bobbin start pulling up. And if you look at it, you'll actually see it, and it'll stretch. So it'll work for a while, but it's pulling so hard. So I had to put like another bobbin spin here so it wouldn't go back. It usually like wants to wrap around. If you have a spool that goes up, you can use the little Asian pear little thing over your thread, and it will keep it nice and aligned as it's coming out. It just wants to just escape. So there's lots of little tips and tricks, so don't give up when you're using this. The last thing is if you did give up, but you still sewed because you're tired like I was, if you have like a Prisma marker or something, if I had brown, I could literally just color my
little
dots,
dots in.
and it would just go away. You know, so if you're desperate, you can do that. I could have used green when I got to here, but when I got to the bottom row, I was exhausted, and that's the way it came out, and I left it.
Talk about this thing.
Oh, so here,
That's
this
what I
here,
Yeah.
oh yeah, so when I'm doing invisible stitching, let me go real quick. When I'm doing invisible stitching, it's invisible, even to me. So I gotta use an extra light.
You got
Okay, I
quite
use
the
an extra
setup.
light.
Yeah.
I will typically, I don't know if you can actually go through there, Mary. Are you able to see through that?
I don't.
Oh,
well,
oh.
yeah, you can.
Whoa.
Yeah, a little
Can you
bit.
see a little bit? But I can see a lot better where my stitches, because this is so small. I mean, we're talking a needle width over here. And typically, if I'm doing my own work, I'll even go smaller.
And that's just a daylight.
Yeah.
Oh,
so
is it actually lit? No.
It is not lit.
Lit,
They do
okay.
sell lit ones, but I find,
You don't
I
need
don't know. I have so many lights and
It's- yeah.
stuff. But they have clamp-on ones. They have ones that just stand up next to your machine. I find that those ones kind of wiggle a little too much. I like the clamp.
I like this because it doesn't have the ring around it.
Right. And it's just big enough. But when I'm doing applique, freezer paper applique, and I'm trying to do invisible stitches, whether that means with the invisible thread, even with regular color thread, I will
Use
use my
I've never
little
used
die.
a magnifier. That's a great
I don't
tip.
often, but I do. See how you can see my roof is kind of peeking out there?
So what's the magnification of that particular one?
No idea.
Okay.
Bigger. Bigger than my eyes. Larger than I can see.
Because
So
it's a
I'm
bread
gonna
box.
use my stiletto and just kind of tack it down.
Oh, because you had a little dog ear.
A little
Yeah.
dog ear, and then I'm gonna turn.
Stiletto is your friend.
Stiletto's my friend on this one. See, to me, this stitch is even a little too big.
Okay.
But in order to, most people don't want to go much smaller, but you can. Like, watch how small this will be. It's literally one stitch on. I mean, it's very tiny. So you can go as small as you want. Okay, so once you're done with that, though, when you come up through these houses, I think I already talked about it. Didn't I already talk about it? I
said
feel like I'm
zigzag,
repeating
and
myself.
you
Had to
changed
go
it to
larger.
2.
Okay, yeah. So you have to go larger when you go in between. I think that's it, Mary.
Okay. Okay.
Tiny
Everybody,
Town,
there is, we wrote up, or Donnell wrote up the details on this Tiny Town completion tips and tricks. So be
But
sure.
here's important on the back
Oops.
for the tips
Oh,
for
here.
sewing with this poly thread
Oh.
without giving up.
Point to it.
Right here.
Right there,
Tips for sewing.
poly
The
thread.
very first one's the most important. Have a glass of wine
Ah,
and relax
no
before
problem.
you start.
I
Just
would. I'm all
don't,
over that one.
Don't give up.
Good.
But you can do it. So that thread's coming in if you don't have any.
Yeah.
I like the Sulky Ultra Fine more than the YLL poly thread. It's just a little wiry and a little thicker.
Yeah.
But anyway, I think that's it.
Good. Great. One
Goodbye,
last.
Chinatown Red. Oh, besides that, there's a treat inside everybody's
Oh
Tiny Town
yes.
pack.
Yes. Yes.
Make
Yes.
sure when you come get your Tiny Town, you look for your treat.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Donnell. Thank
Goodbye.
you. Goodbye. See you all on the 10th of April,
Oh, yeah.
hopefully.
Block
for
party. Block
block
party.
party. Last block party. Have your quilt tops done. Okay. Bye.